At 14, I was abandoned at the Dubai airport because of a joke from my envious brother. Broken and hungry, I met a strange Arab man. Come with me. Trust me. They will regret this. 4 hours later, FBI called in horror. Mom turned white when she realized what I'd become. My name is Tessa Whitmore, and the worst day of my life started with champagne at 30,000 feet. We were flying first class to Dubai for my father's business conference, the kind of trip most 14-year-old girls would kill for. My older brother Kyle sat across the aisle smirking at his phone, probably texting his girlfriend about how annoying I was. Mom dozed beside Dad, her Hermes eye mask perfectly positioned. Everything looked picture perfect, exactly like our life in Palisades Heights, California, where we lived in a house with ocean views and problems hidden behind custom drapery. Kyle had always resented me. I knew that. He was 17 and furious that I existed, convinced our parents loved me more because I was the baby, the only daughter, the one Dad called his little genius. I had just won a national science competition, and the local newspapers had run my photo. Kyle's face had gone tight when he saw it on our kitchen counter. "Must be nice," he'd said, "getting attention for being a nerd." I'd ignored him, like always, but something in his eyes that morning should have warned me. Jealousy has a specific color when it reaches critical mass. It turns green and starts to rot. Dubai International Airport was chaos and gold, exactly like the travel blogs promised. We landed at 2 a.m. local time, exhausted and cranky. Dad headed straight to the business lounge to make calls. Mom announced she needed the restroom. Kyle grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. "Come on, there's an amazing candy store on the other terminal. I'll buy you whatever you want. Peace offering for being a jerk lately." I hesitated because Kyle never apologized, never offered gifts, never treated me like anything except an obstacle in his perfect child narrative. But I was 14 and stupid and wanted so desperately to believe my brother might actually like me. We walked through terminals of marble and designer stores, everything shining like a fever dream. Kyle kept checking his phone, kept glancing back, kept moving faster. "It's just up here," he promised, leading me down a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. Then he stopped at a gate lounge, pulled out his phone, and took a selfie. "Wait here 1 second. I need to hit the bathroom real quick." I stood there like an idiot, watching him disappear around the corner. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. I called his phone and it went straight to voicemail. I called Mom's phone and heard it ringing from somewhere impossibly far away, maybe back at our original gate. That's when the cold feeling started in my stomach, spreading like poison through my whole body. I ran back the way we'd come, my carry-on banging against my legs, my breath coming in gasps. Our gate was empty, completely empty. No parents, no Kyle, no anyone. The departure board showed our connecting flight to California had left 18 minutes ago. I stood there, shaking, not understanding, my brain refusing to process what was happening. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Kyle's number. 3 words that destroyed my entire world. "Bon voyage, princess." I screamed. I actually screamed in that empty terminal, and a security guard came running. I tried to explain through sobs that my family left me, that my brother tricked me, that I was 14 and alone and American and terrified. The guard made calls in Arabic, his face growing concerned, and within minutes I was in an office with officials who didn't quite believe my story. "Your family would not leave you on purpose," they kept saying. "There must be misunderstanding." I showed them Kyle's text and watched their expressions change. They tried calling my parents' phones. Nothing. They tried the airline. My family had boarded the flight. All of them. Together. Without me. The next 6 hours were bureaucratic hell. I had my passport, but no credit cards, no local currency, just $43 in my wallet and a phone that was dying. The airport officials were kind but overwhelmed, dealing with actual emergencies while I sat in a chair crying like the abandoned child I was. They gave me water and contacted the American consulate, but it was the middle of the night and everything moved slowly. I sat there picturing my family in the air, Kyle probably telling some elaborate lie about how I'd wandered off, how I was always irresponsible, how this was somehow my fault. I imagined Mom believing him because Kyle was golden, Kyle was never wrong, Kyle had a future in Dad's commercial real estate empire, while I was just the smart daughter who'd never inherit anything that mattered. Around 7 a.m., starving and exhausted, I left the office to find food. The officials had told me to stay put, but my blood sugar was crashing and my brain felt fuzzy. I found a currency exchange, traded my pathetic American dollars for dirhams, and headed toward a food court. That's when I saw him, the strange Arab man who would change everything. He was maybe 50, wearing an expensive white thobe and gold watch, sitting alone at a cafe table reading a newspaper. Something about him radiated power and danger in equal measure. He looked up as I passed, his dark eyes assessing, and said in perfect English, "You look lost, child." I should have kept walking. Every stranger danger lesson I'd ever learned screamed at me to keep walking, but I was so tired and broken and furious that I stopped. I'm not lost. I'm abandoned. The words came out bitter and true. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit. Tell me." And I did, heaven help me, I did. I told him everything. About Kyle's jealousy, about the trick, about my family flying home without me, about being 14 and alone and so angry I could barely breathe. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable, his expensive watch catching the fluorescent lights. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My name is Ahmed al-Rashid. I am a businessman with considerable resources and very particular skills. I also have a daughter your age who died 3 years ago, leukemia. I would give everything I own to have her back, and yet your family throws you away like garbage over a child's jealous game." His voice was soft, but something in it made my skin prickle. "You have 2 choices, Tessa Whitmore. You can contact the consulate, fly home to your family, and pretend this never happened. Or you can come with me. Trust me. Let me show you something about power and consequence. 4 hours. That's all I ask. 4 hours of your time, and I promise you, your family will regret what they've done. They will regret it for the rest of their lives." I should have said no. Any sane person would have said no, but I wasn't sane right then. I was a 14-year-old girl whose own mother had left her in a foreign country, whose brother had orchestrated her abandonment like it was funny, whose father hadn't even noticed she was missing. "What happens in 4 hours?" I asked. Ahmed smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "Justice," he said, "the kind that leaves marks on the soul instead of the body, the kind your brilliant mind will appreciate." He knew about my science award. He'd done research in the 30 seconds while I was talking, probably, his phone hidden under his newspaper. This man was connected and dangerous, and offering me something I wanted more than safety. He was offering me revenge. "Okay," I whispered. 4 hours. Ahmed nodded and stood, gesturing for me to follow. We walked through the airport to a private terminal I didn't know existed, where his driver waited beside a black Mercedes that cost more than my parents' house. The leather interior smelled like money and cedar. Ahmed made a phone call in rapid Arabic, then turned to me. "First, we eat. Revenge on an empty stomach is sloppy." He took me to his home, a palace straight out of a movie, all white marble and gold fixtures and staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. I ate the best meal of my life while he explained what he did for a living. International security consultation. Private intelligence, the kind of work that put him in contact with governments and agencies and people who could make things happen. "Your parents will have landed in Los Angeles by now," he said, checking his watch. "They will have gone through customs, collected their luggage, and either your brother has confessed to his little prank, or they still believe you simply got lost. Either way, they will be frantic. They will have called the airline, the consulate, everyone they can think of, and they will have learned that you left the airport with a strange man. He saw my expression and laughed. Don't worry, the security footage shows everything. You are safe. You came willingly, but your parents don't know that yet. Your parents are currently imagining every horrible possibility: human trafficking, kidnapping, murder. Their 14-year-old daughter gone, and it's their fault for leaving her behind. The cruelty of it hit me then, but so did the satisfaction. Good, let them suffer. Let them feel 1/10 of what I felt in that empty terminal. Ahmed continued. In approximately 30 minutes, the FBI will receive an anonymous tip about your situation. They will contact your parents. Your mother will turn white. Your father will turn silent. Then Kyle will realize his joke has become a federal investigation. And then, Tessa, then we give them the gift of relief. We let them know you're safe. We send you home. But the damage will be done. The knowledge that they abandoned you, that consequences exist, that you are not powerless. That seed will grow into something that changes your family forever. Why are you helping me? I asked. Ahmed's expression went distant. Because my daughter was kind and brilliant, and the world took her anyway. Because your family had something precious and threw it away. Because I believe in balance, and this situation is unbalanced. Also, because in 4 hours, when I send you home, you will remember that power comes in many forms: money, connections, intelligence. You have the last one naturally. The others can be acquired. What you choose to do with that knowledge is up to you, but I suspect you will do interesting things. The next hours passed in a blur. Ahmed showed me his office with its walls of screens and secure phones. He introduced me to his head of security, a former Mossad agent who taught me about digital footprints and surveillance in the 15 minutes we talked. He gave me his private number and his email address. Stay in touch, he said. When you're older, if you want to learn more, my door is open. I believe in investing in brilliant young women. The world needs more of them in positions of power. At exactly 11 a.m. Dubai time, he had his driver take me back to the airport, where consulate officials were waiting with relief and questions. Ahmed had arranged everything: my flight home, my safety, my story. On the plane back to Los Angeles, alone in first class because Ahmed had upgraded my ticket, I thought about what had happened. About Kyle's cruelty and my parents' negligence, and the strange Arab man who had shown me a glimpse of a different kind of power. The flight attendant brought me sparkling cider and asked if I was okay. I'm perfect, I said, and meant it. I was changed, transformed. The abandoned little girl was gone, replaced by something harder and smarter and infinitely more patient. Revenge wasn't a dish served cold. It was a long game played with precision over years. When I landed at LAX, my parents were there behind the barriers, Mom's face swollen from crying, Dad's expression haggard, Kyle conspicuously absent. They rushed forward when they saw me, Mom pulling me into a hug that smelled like her expensive perfume and desperation. Baby, oh baby, we're so sorry. Kyle told us what he did. We had no idea. We thought you were in the bathroom. We're so sorry. Her voice broke on the last word. Dad just stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, really seeing me, and what he saw scared him. Tessa, he said quietly, what happened in Dubai? I smiled, the same smile Ahmed had given me across that cafe table. I learned something, Daddy. I learned exactly how much I'm worth to this family, and I learned what I'm capable of when you treat me like I don't matter. Mom made a small, wounded sound. Kyle appeared then, being escorted by airport security because apparently he was on some kind of watch list now thanks to the FBI investigation. He looked terrified, his golden boy confidence shattered. He couldn't even meet my eyes. Tessa, I'm sorry. It was just supposed to be funny. I didn't think they'd actually leave without you. I swear I told them as soon as we landed, but you were already gone. And then the FBI called and I thought you were dead, and I'm so sorry. Please. Stop talking, Kyle, I said softly. Just stop. You got exactly what you wanted. You proved I was disposable. Congratulations." I walked past all of them toward the exit, rolling my new designer luggage that Ahmed had given me, full of clothes and books and a laptop with encrypted communication software. My parents followed, stuttering apologies and explanations, but I tuned them out. The game had changed. I had changed, and they had no idea what was coming. Ahmed had planted a seed, and I was going to nurture it until it grew into something that would remake my entire world. That was 8 years ago. 8 years of patience and planning and becoming someone my family didn't recognize. 8 years of staying in touch with Ahmed, learning from him, building connections and skills, and a network that spread across continents. 8 years of watching Kyle fail upward in Dad's company while I excelled in college, double majoring in computer science and international business. 8 years of pretending to forgive while never forgetting. And now, at 22, I was ready to show them exactly what happens when you abandon someone who refuses to stay abandoned. The first move came on a Tuesday. Dad's company, Whitmore Commercial Properties, lost its biggest client to a mysterious overseas competitor. The competitor's pitch had been flawless, anticipating every one of Dad's strategies, undercutting every price point. Dad came home that night looking 20 years older. "I don't understand," he kept saying. "It's like they knew exactly what we were planning." Mom patted his hand uselessly. Kyle, now 25 and nominally the VP of development, looked panicked. "We'll get them back, Dad. I'll fix this." But he couldn't fix it because he didn't know the competitor was a shell company controlled by Ahmed's network, operating on intelligence I'd provided for my position as an IT consultant they'd hired 6 months ago to upgrade their systems. The second move came 2 weeks later. Kyle's girlfriend, Emma, a gorgeous, aspiring actress he'd been dating for 3 years, suddenly broke up with him. Devastated him, actually. She moved to New York, landed a role in an off-Broadway play, and started dating the producer. Kyle called me crying at the first real conversation we'd had since Dubai. "I don't understand, Tessa. We were going to get engaged. She said she loved me. What happened?" I made sympathetic noises while looking at the messages Emma had sent me, thanking me for the introduction to the producer, gushing about her new life. Emma and I had met at a charity event I'd arranged. We'd become friends. I'd told her about Kyle, about Dubai, about everything. She'd looked horrified. "He did what to you?" And just like that, her feelings for him had started to change. I didn't force anything. I just showed her who Kyle really was underneath the charm. The rest happened naturally. The third move was the most elegant. Mom's precious reputation in Palisades Heights society started to crumble when photos surfaced of Dad having lunch with a young woman. The photos were real, but innocent. The woman was a potential client. But the angle and timing made them look damning. Someone had sent them to the biggest gossip in Mom's social circle, with a carefully worded anonymous note suggesting an affair. Mom confronted Dad. Dad denied everything truthfully, but the damage was done. Her friends started whispering. Her charity board position became uncomfortable. She started staying home, avoiding events, her perfect facade cracking. I visited for Sunday dinner and watched her pick at her food, her eyes red. "I don't know who would do this," she whispered. "Who would want to hurt us like this?" I met her gaze across the table, letting her see something cold in my expression. "Maybe someone you hurt first, Mom. Maybe someone who remembers being left behind." She went pale, understanding flooding her features. Dad's head snapped up. Kyle actually dropped his fork. They all stared at me like I'd transformed into something monstrous right in front of them. "Tessa," Dad said carefully. "What are you saying?" I smiled and took a sip of wine. "I'm saying that actions have consequences. I'm saying that 8 years ago you taught me I was disposable. I'm saying I learned from the best. Ahmed al-Rashid sends his regards, by the way. He's very proud of how I've developed our partnership." The name Ahmed hit them like a bomb. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face went red, then white. "You've been in contact with that man? The one from Dubai? Tessa, the FBI said he was dangerous, that he had connections to—" To everyone who matters, I finished. Yes, he became my mentor, my friend, the father figure who actually valued me. And together, we've been systematically dismantling everything you built, piece by piece, because you left me in an airport and expected no consequences. How's that feel, Dad? How's it feel to watch your empire crumble and not understand why? Kyle stood up so fast his chair fell over. You can't do this. You can't just destroy our lives because of a stupid mistake I made when I was 17. I apologized. We all apologized. His voice cracked on the last word. I stood too, calm and controlled. You apologized because you got caught, because the FBI investigation stared you, because you needed me to come home and make it all go away. But you never apologized because you understood what you did was unforgivable. None of you did. You swept it under the rug and expected me to be grateful you took me back. Well, I'm not grateful. I'm patient. And now the bill is due. I walked toward the door, leaving them frozen in their dining room with its crystal chandelier and inherited china. Mom called after me, her voice desperate. Tessa, please, we're your family. Whatever we did, we can fix it. Just tell us how to fix it. I turned back, seeing them all there, this family that had shaped me through their cruelty and neglect. You can't fix it, Mom, but you can live with it. Every failure, every loss, every whisper behind your back, you can live with knowing your daughter became more powerful than all of you combined, and she did it because you threw her away. Sleep well. But I didn't leave yet, because the real revelation, the true revenge, was still waiting in the wings. The fourth move, the final piece, the thing that would break them completely and rebuild them into something better. Or destroy them entirely. I hadn't decided which they deserved. As I drove away from that house in my Mercedes, Ahmed's gift for my 21st birthday, my phone buzzed with a message that made me smile. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The question was whether my family would survive what came next. The real earthquake hit 3 days after my dinner confession. I was in my Culver City penthouse, the one I'd bought with money from my consulting business that was definitely real and definitely not funded by Ahmed's network. Okay, maybe partially funded. The point was I'd earned my position through intelligence and strategy, which was more than Kyle could say about his VP title. My phone rang at exactly 7 a.m. Dad's number. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Tessa, you need to come to the house right now. His voice was shaking. Not angry shaking, terrified shaking. What happened? I asked, injecting a false concern into my tone. FBI showed up an hour ago with a warrant. They're searching everything. They're saying things about the company, about offshore accounts, about fraud. Tessa, they think we've been laundering money through fake property deals. They have documents, evidence. Someone sent them everything. The line crackled with his panicked breathing. Did you do this? Did you send the FBI after your own family? I sat up slowly, genuine surprise filtering through my planned revenge narrative. I didn't send them anything. That was technically true. I hadn't sent the FBI documents. But someone in Ahmed's network had, and I hadn't stopped them, which maybe amounted to the same thing. Except the fraud allegations were news to me, too. I'd been destroying Dad's business through competition and client theft, not framing him for crimes. Unless he'd actually committed crimes, which, based on his panic, seemed increasingly possible. Dad, are the allegations true? Have you been doing something illegal? No! I mean, there were some tax optimization strategies Kyle suggested, some creative accounting to maximize deductions, but nothing illegal, nothing that every other developer doesn't do. He stopped abruptly, and I heard Mom's voice in the background, sharp and afraid. Then Kyle's voice, louder, angrier. This is your fault. You and your revenge scheme brought scrutiny on us. You probably planted false evidence. You ruined everything. There was a scuffling sound, like someone grabbed the phone. Kyle's voice came through clear and hateful. I hope you're proud, little sister. You destroyed your own family because I played a prank 8 years ago. Real proportional. Real mature. Something in his tone, the complete lack of understanding, the refusal to accept that abandoning a child in a foreign country was more than a prank, made my carefully controlled anger slip. "You still don't get it," I said quietly. "This isn't about proportionality, Kyle. This is about you being a terrible person who's never faced real consequences for anything. This is about mom and dad enabling you, choosing you, leaving me behind, literally and figuratively my entire life. And if dad's been committing fraud, that's on him, not me. I didn't create his crimes. I just made sure people were paying attention when they came to light." I hung up and immediately called Ahmed. He answered on the first ring. His voice warmed, despite the early hour in Dubai. "Tessa, I assume you've heard about the FBI?" "What did you do?" I demanded. "We agreed to hurt their business, their reputation, their comfort, not send them to prison. That's too far." Ahmed was quiet for a moment. "I did nothing beyond what we discussed. But when my team was gathering intelligence on your father's company, we discovered actual criminal activity. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, fake property transactions to hide income, money laundering for clients who were themselves under investigation. Your father is not an innocent businessman having a run of bad luck, Tessa. He's a criminal who's been lucky until now." The words hit me like cold water. My father was a criminal. My golden boy brother had suggested tax fraud strategies. My perfect family was built on lies and illegal money. "You're sure?" I asked, needing confirmation. "I have documentation I can send you. But yes, I'm certain. The question is what you want to do with this information. I can make it disappear. I have that power. Or we can let justice proceed. Your choice, but choose quickly. The FBI moves fast once they start." I thought about 14-year-old me abandoned in Dubai. I thought about a lifetime of being second best to Kyle, of being the smart daughter who didn't matter as much as the son. I thought about mom's charity boards built on dirty money and dad's lectures about integrity while he committed fraud. Then I thought about the kind of person I wanted to be. Revenge was satisfying, but there were lines, weren't there? "Send me the documentation," I said finally. "I need to see it myself before I decide." 20 minutes later, I was staring at financial records that made my stomach hurt. Ahmed's intelligence was impeccable. Bank statements showing wire transfers to offshore accounts, emails between Dad and Kyle discussing creative solutions to tax problems, falsified property appraisals to inflate values for insurance purposes. It was worse than simple tax evasion. It was systematic fraud spanning years, maybe decades. And Kyle was neck deep in it, his suggestions and strategies documented in his own emails with timestamps and metadata that would hold up in any court. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Tessa Whitmore?" The voice was female, professional, official. "This is Special Agent Jennifer Chen with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. We need to speak with you regarding your family's business activities. You're not currently under investigation, but we believe you may have information relevant to our case. Can you come to our field office today?" My heart hammered against my ribs. "Am I required to come?" "Not yet," Agent Chen said carefully, "but cooperation at this stage would be noted favorably. We're aware you've been estranged from the family business. We're also aware you work in IT consulting with access to their systems. We'd like to understand what you may have observed during that work." The trap was elegant. I'd positioned myself as an IT consultant to access their systems for competitive intelligence, but that access also made me a potential witness to their crimes, or a potential suspect if the FBI decided I was involved. "I'll need to consult with an attorney first," I said, using the exact words Ahmed's head of security had taught me years ago. Never talk to federal agents without representation. Never. Agent Chen's voice remained professional. "That's your right. Please have your attorney contact me to schedule a meeting. Time-sensitive matters are involved, Miss Whitmore. Days, not weeks." After she hung up, I sat in my apartment, staring at the city view I'd worked so hard to earn. Everything was spiraling beyond my control. I'd wanted to hurt them, humble them, make them understand consequences. I hadn't wanted to send them to prison. Or had I? The question gnawed at me. What did justice actually look like here? Kyle had abandoned me as a cruel joke. My parents had enabled him, chosen him, left me behind. But federal prison? Asset forfeiture? The destruction of everything they'd built, criminal or not? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Starbucks on Wilshire, 20 minutes, come alone. No signature, but I knew the writing style. Ahmed was in Los Angeles. I grabbed my keys and headed out, my mind racing through possibilities. The Starbucks was crowded with the morning rush, but Ahmed sat in a corner booth like he owned the place, which, knowing his net worth, he probably could. He looked the same as 8 years ago, maybe a few more gray hairs, same expensive watch, same dangerous smile. Sit, Habibti, we need to talk. I slid into the booth across from him. You're supposed to be in Dubai. I'm supposed to be wherever my investments need me, he corrected gently. And you, Tessa Whitmore, are my most important investment, which is why I'm here to ask you a very serious question. What do you actually want? Not revenge, not punishment. What is the outcome that lets you sleep at night? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I didn't know. I wanted them to understand what they did to me. I wanted them to feel powerless and afraid like I felt in that airport. I wanted Kyle to lose everything he took for granted. But prison? Dad losing the company? Mom losing her whole identity? I don't know if I want that. Ahmed nodded like I'd confirmed something. Then we adjust the plan. The FBI investigation is real and legitimate. I didn't fabricate evidence. Your father committed crimes. But we can influence outcomes if we're smart. Your father and brother cooperate fully, provide evidence against their clients who are worse criminals, accept plea deals that involve fines and probation rather than prison time. They lose the company, lose their reputation, lose their comfortable life. But they don't lose their freedom entirely. Your mother, who genuinely didn't know about the fraud based on our investigation, gets to keep the house and enough assets to survive. Everyone learns their lesson without complete destruction. Why would you help them? I asked. After everything? Ahmed's expression softened. I'm not helping them. I'm helping you. Because complete revenge leaves the person taking it hollow. I learned this the hard way years ago, when I destroyed someone who wronged me and found the victory empty. You're 22, with your whole life ahead of you. I don't want you carrying that hollowness. Also, your family needs to live with what they've done, what they've lost. Dead or imprisoned people don't suffer the same way. Alive and diminished, watching you succeed without them, knowing they created their own downfall, that's the revenge that actually satisfies long term. I thought about it, turning over the possibilities. Dad and Kyle in prison jumpsuits versus Dad and Kyle in a small apartment somewhere, working regular jobs, stripped of their empire and forced to acknowledge I'd surpass them. Mom in her big empty house versus Mom volunteering at actual charities, learning humility, maybe becoming a real person instead of a society mannequin. How do we make that happen? I asked. Ahmed smiled. You wear a wire, you go to Sunday dinner. You ask the right questions. You get them to explain the fraud on tape, to confess to you. You deliver it to the FBI through your attorney with an offer. Your family's full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Everyone wins, except the actual bad guys they were laundering money for. The idea of betraying my family that completely, of wiring myself up and recording their confessions, should have felt wrong, should have made me sick. But all I felt was a cold certainty that this was justice, real justice, not perfect, but proportional. What about Kyle? I asked. He's the one who started this whole thing. What happens to him specifically? Ahmed leaned back, considering. Kyle faces consequences appropriate to his actions, both the fraud and the abandonment. Public humiliation when the case becomes news, loss of career prospects, estrangement from you permanently. He learns that actions have prices. But he's young enough to rebuild if he chooses. Most people squander second chances. A few don't. We'll see which kind he is. 3 hours later, I was in a federal building downtown, meeting with Agent Chen and an attorney Ahmed had recommended. The attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Reeves, who specialized in white-collar crime, had reviewed everything and confirmed the plan was legally sound, if morally complex. "You're acting as a confidential informant," she explained. "Your family isn't entitled to attorney-client privilege in casual conversation. If they confess to crimes while you're recording, that's admissible evidence. The question is whether you can emotionally handle doing this to people you're related to." "They're not my people anymore," I said, surprised by how true it felt. "They stopped being my people in Dubai." Agent Chen nodded approvingly. "We'll wire you with equipment so small they'll never notice. Go to Sunday dinner like normal. Steer conversation toward the business, toward the offshore accounts. Ask questions. Let them explain. Don't push too hard or they'll get suspicious. Just be concerned, be interested, be the daughter asking about family business. Can you do that?" I thought about 14-year-old me sitting in that airport office, alone and terrified and abandoned. "Yes," I said, "I can do that." Sunday dinner at the Whitmore house felt like walking into a tomb. Mom answered the door looking haggard, her usual perfect appearance cracked around the edges. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, yoga pants instead of designer dress. "Tessa," she said, surprise and hope and fear all mixed in her voice. "I didn't think you'd come. After everything, after what you said last week, I thought—" She stopped, tears pooling in her eyes. "I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk. We need to figure this out as a family." The wire pressed against my ribs under my sweater, tiny and professional and damning. I hugged Mom gently, feeling her shake against me. "It's okay, Mom. I want to understand what's happening. The FBI stuff scared me. I need to know the truth." She pulled back, searching my face for signs of the cold person I'd been at last week's dinner. I let her see vulnerability instead, the daughter who might still love them despite everything. It wasn't entirely an act. Some part of me, the part that remembered being 7 and believing my family was perfect, still loved them, hated them too, but love and hate aren't opposites. Indifference is. Dad and Kyle were in the living room, both looking worse than I'd ever seen them. Dad had aged a decade in a week, his face gray and drawn. Kyle's golden boy confidence was completely gone, replaced by something twitchy and afraid. They both stood when I entered. "Tessa," Dad said hoarsely, "thank you for coming. I know we don't deserve it after what we've put you through, both recently and 8 years ago, but you're our daughter. Our family. We need to figure this out together." I sat down in the armchair I'd always loved as a kid, the one by the window at the ocean view. "Tell me what's really going on," I said softly. "The FBI, the allegations, all of it. I need to understand." Dad and Kyle exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. Then Dad sighed, the sound of a man surrendering. "It started small," he began. "Just some creative accounting to maximize tax deductions. Every developer does it. But then Kyle suggested we could do more, be smarter about it. Offshore accounts to park money, shell companies to move funds around, property deals that existed only on paper to generate fake losses for tax purposes." Kyle jumped in, defensive. "It was supposed to be temporary, just until we got through a rough patch after 2020. But then it worked so well, generated so much extra cash flow, that we kept going. We got sloppy, though, didn't cover our tracks well enough. And now, with the FBI investigating, with all the attention Tessa brought on us," he shot me an accusatory look, "now it's all falling apart. The clients we were helping hide money are going to throw us under the bus to save themselves. We're going to take the fall for everything." "How much money are we talking about?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. The wire captured every word, every confession, every detail. Dad shook his head. "Millions, maybe 20 million over the years that we moved through offshore accounts. The tax evasion alone could send us to prison for a decade. If they prove the money laundering for clients, even longer. Tessa, I know you're angry with us. I know we failed you terribly in Dubai and before that and after. But you're smart, smarter than all of us. Is there any way your contacts, your resources can help? That man Ahmed you mentioned, does he have power with the FBI? The question hung in the air, laden with desperation and hope, and the assumption that I'd save them despite everything. Mom was crying silently on the couch. Kyle stared at his hands. Dad looked at me like I was his last chance at redemption, and I felt the weight of the choice Ahmed had laid out: complete destruction or measured justice. The Wire captured it all: their confession, their crimes, their assumption that family loyalty would override their betrayals. I thought about the girl abandoned in Dubai and the woman I'd become, and what kind of person I wanted to be going forward. I can help, I said finally. Not the way you think. Not by making this go away or using connections to fix it. I can help by telling you the truth you need to hear. I stood up, walking to the window, looking out at the ocean view that had been bought with dirty money. You committed crimes, real crimes, not mistakes or aggressive tax strategies, actual fraud and money laundering, and you need to face consequences for that. But there's a way to do it that doesn't destroy you completely. You cooperate fully with the FBI. You provide evidence against the clients you are helping hide money. You accept plea deals that involve fines, probation, community service. You lose the company and the reputation and this house and all the symbols of success you thought defined you, but you stay out of prison. You get a second chance to be real people instead of criminals pretending to be successful. Dad's face went white. You want us to cooperate? To confess? To lose everything we built? His voice rose with each question. Kyle stood up, anger flooding back. This is your revenge? You wire yourself up, you record us confessing, and then you hand us over to the FBI with instructions on how to destroy our lives? What kind of person does that to family? The accusation stung, but I met his eyes steadily. The kind of person who was abandoned in an airport at 14 and learned that family is earned, not assumed. The kind of person who watched you commit crimes and expected me to help you cover them up because we share DNA. I'm not destroying your lives, Kyle. You did that yourselves. I'm just making sure you face it instead of running away like you made me face Dubai alone. Mom made a broken sound. Tessa, please. We're sorry. We've said we're sorry. What more do you want from us? I turned to her, letting her see the truth in my expression. I want you to understand that sorry isn't magic. It doesn't erase what you did or who you showed me you were. I want you to accept that I don't owe you protection from consequences just because we're related. And I want you to know that I'll still be here when this is over if you actually learn and change. But not as your victim or your savior, as your equal who won't tolerate being treated as less ever again. The silence that followed was heavy with shock and understanding, and the beginning of something that might eventually become respect. Dad sank back into his chair, looking old and defeated. Kyle's anger drained away, leaving exhaustion. Mom wiped her eyes, processing. Then Dad said quietly, "The recording. You're wearing a wire right now, aren't you? The FBI sent you to get our confession." I nodded, not hiding it. They offered me a deal. Your cooperation for reduced charges. I'm taking it because I believe you deserve consequences, but not complete destruction. Ahmed was right. People learn better from living with their failures than being erased by them. Kyle laughed, a bitter sound without humor. Ahmed, the mysterious man from Dubai who's been your puppet master for 8 years. I bet he's proud of you right now, turning in your own family like some kind of informant. I met Kyle's eyes, letting him see the steel that had replaced the soft sister he'd abandoned. Ahmed taught me that power without conscience is tyranny, that revenge without limits is poison, that justice requires wisdom. You taught me that family without loyalty is just people living in the same house. So yes, he's proud. And no, I don't care if you understand. Agent Chen's team arrived 30 minutes later, Dad having called his attorney, who advised immediate cooperation. The Wire had given them everything they needed for deals. The next weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, media coverage, and social destruction. The story hit every local news outlet. Prominent developer family implicated in major fraud case. Dad and Kyle's mugshots went viral. Mom's charity boards dropped her immediately. The house went on the market. Assets were frozen pending investigation and restitution. I watched it all from my penthouse, staying distant but informed. Ahmed called daily to check on me, making sure the hollowness he'd warned about wasn't setting in. "How do you feel?" he asked one evening. "Satisfied? Sick? Both?" I thought about it carefully. Neither. I feel clear, like I cut out something infected and now the healing can start. They're facing consequences. I didn't have to become a monster to make it happen. That feels right. Ahmed's approval came through the phone like warmth. Good. This is the end of revenge and the beginning of your actual life. What comes next is up to you. What came next was unexpected. 6 months after the FBI raid, Mom called me. Not Dad, not Kyle. Mom. "Can we meet for coffee?" she asked, tentatively. "Just us. I need to talk to you." We met at a quiet cafe in Santa Monica, both of us nervous. Mom looked different, older but somehow younger too, wearing normal clothes instead of designer armor, her hair natural instead of salon perfect. "I got a job," she said when we sat down, "at a nonprofit that helps women in crisis. Administrative work, nothing fancy, but it's real. I'm doing something that matters instead of just posing for charity event photos." I sipped my coffee, waiting. Mom continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I need to apologize to you properly, not the panicked apology at the airport or the desperate one during the FBI investigation. A real one. I failed you as a mother. I enabled Kyle's cruelty because it was easier than confronting him. I left you in Dubai because I believed your father when he said you'd be fine, and I didn't check for myself because I was tired and it was easier. I chose comfort over your safety. And I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know I understand what I did, and I'm trying to be better." The words hung between us, genuine and painful. I looked at my mother, really looked, and saw someone breaking and rebuilding into something more honest. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for saying that, for meaning it, for trying." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "Can we start over? Not erase what happened, but build something new? I want to know my daughter, the brilliant woman you became despite us, not because of us. I want to earn a place in your life if you'll let me." The conversation that followed lasted 3 hours. We talked about Dubai and before and after, about Kyle's jealousy that had poisoned our family dynamics, about Dad's obsession with success that led to crimes, about her own complicity in staying silent. We talked about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about boundaries and second chances, about what family could mean if rebuilt on honesty instead of obligation. When we parted, we weren't fixed, but we'd started something real. Kyle never apologized. His plea deal required community service and 5 years probation, loss of his professional licenses, supervised therapy. He moved to Portland, cut contact with the family, went silent on social media. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was working retail, living in a studio apartment, bitter about his fall from golden boy to nobody. Part of me felt satisfaction at his reduced circumstances. Part of me hoped he'd eventually learn and grow like Mom was trying to. Mostly, I felt nothing, which Ahmed said was healthy. Indifference is healing, he reminded me. It means you've released the poison. Dad was harder. His plea deal was harsher because he'd been the primary actor in the fraud. 2 years in minimum security federal prison, followed by 5 years probation and massive restitution payments. He wrote me letters from prison that I didn't answer for months. When I finally did, my response was brief. Use this time to think about the kind of man you want to be when you get out. The empire builder who committed crimes, or someone authentic who values people over profit. Your choice. He wrote back one sentence. I'm trying to choose wisely. Thank you for not giving up on that possibility. A year after the FBI raid, I was offered a position at Ahmed's international firm. Not charity or nepotism, but a real job based on skills I'd proven. Head of digital intelligence for their Western operations, based in Los Angeles with travel to Dubai quarterly. The salary was absurd. The work was challenging and meaningful, tracking financial crimes and building cases against actual bad actors. You're using your powers for good now, Ahmed said at my welcome dinner in Dubai, his smile proud and paternal. My daughter would have liked you very much. You're everything I hoped she'd become. The comment made me tear up. This man who'd seen my abandonment and turned it into transformation. Thank you, I said, for everything. For that day in the airport, for teaching me power and restraint, for showing me revenge doesn't have to destroy the person taking it. Ahmed raised his glass. Thank you for proving my investment was wise. Now, go build something extraordinary with your life. 2 years after Dubai, I flew Mom and reformed Dad to my penthouse for dinner. Dad had been released 6 months earlier, working as a project manager for a non-profit housing developer. Humble work. Meaningful work. He looked healthier than I'd ever seen him, the gray pallor of guilt replaced by something clearer. Mom was thriving in her nonprofit job, had been promoted to program director. They'd downsized to a condo in Orange County, lived simply, spoke honestly. We weren't close, like a normal family, but we were real. I'm proud of you, Dad said over dessert, the words coming hard but genuine. Not just your success, though that's remarkable, but who you are, how you handled what we did to you. You could have destroyed us completely. Instead, you gave us a chance to become better people. That took wisdom I didn't have at your age. Mom nodded agreement. I saved us from ourselves, Tessa. I understand that now. The worst thing would have been letting us continue like we were, criminals playing at respectability. You loved us enough to force us to face truth. I looked at them across my dining table, these imperfect people who'd failed me and learned and tried. I didn't do it out of love initially, I admitted. I did it out of anger and hurt and the desire to make you suffer like I suffered. But Ahmed taught me to aim that anger at justice instead of pure destruction. So we all got lucky. I got closure, you got consequences and second chances. Nobody got erased. The doorbell rang. I'd invited one more person to this dinner, someone I'd recently reconnected with. Emma, Kyle's ex-girlfriend, had become one of my closest friends over the past year. She was killing it in New York theater, had a Tony nomination, had built a life that didn't require anyone's validation. Sorry I'm late, she said, breezing in with wine and stories. Mom and Dad greeted her warmly, no awkwardness about her history with Kyle. That part of all our lives felt distant now, like different people had lived it. After dinner, standing on my balcony overlooking the city lights, Emma asked the question I'd been asking myself. Do you ever regret it? The revenge, the FBI cooperation, all of it? I thought about 14-year-old me in Dubai meeting a strange man who offered justice. I thought about the years of planning and execution. I thought about the family I'd broken and rebuilt. No, I said finally. I don't regret demanding consequences for people who harmed me, but I'm glad I learned to balance revenge with mercy. Pure destruction would have poisoned me. Measured justice transformed everyone. Emma nodded understanding. Kyle reached out to me last month. Actual apology, no excuses. Said his therapist made him write accountability letters to everyone he'd harmed. I didn't respond, but it felt significant that he tried. I filed that information away, a small piece of evidence that even Kyle might be learning. Maybe he'll figure it out eventually, or maybe he won't. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I got my closure. He has to find his own. The moral of my story isn't that revenge is good or bad, it's that consequences matter. That abandoning a child at an airport over jealousy isn't a prank, it's betrayal. That enabling crimes and cruelty eventually catches up with you. That power used wisely can transform situations without destroying souls. I was abandoned at 14 and met a man who taught me that strength comes in many forms, that intelligence is its own kind of power, that justice requires both force and restraint. My family learned they couldn't throw away people without consequences. They learned that the quiet daughter they underestimated became the force that held them accountable. They learned that real family is built on respect and honesty, not obligation and secrets. And I learned that revenge executed with wisdom can lead to healing instead of hollowness. Ahmed was right. Complete destruction would have left me empty. Measured justice left me whole. I'm 24 now, head of digital intelligence for an international firm, friend to a former enemy who became a sister, daughter to parents who failed and learned and tried, stranger to a brother who might eventually learn his own lessons, protege to a man who saw potential in an abandoned girl and invested in her transformation. I built this life from the worst day of my childhood, from abandonment and hunger, and a choice to trust a strange man who offered me something more valuable than rescue. He offered me power, and I used it wisely. The lights of Los Angeles spread out below my penthouse, each one a story, a life, a choice. Somewhere in that city, my father was working an honest job. My mother was helping women in crisis. Kyle was figuring out who he was without privilege. Emma was performing to sold-out crowds. Ahmed was building his empire with one eye always on the people he'd invested in. And I was here, whole and clear and ready for whatever came next. The girl abandoned in Dubai was gone, but she'd transformed into something stronger and smarter and infinitely more capable of changing the world. That was the real revenge. Not destroying them, surpassing them, becoming everything they'd assumed I couldn't be because I was just the smart daughter who didn't matter as much as the golden sun. I mattered now, to myself first, which was all that actually counted. The rest was just noise. Justice served. Lesson learned. Life transformed. And somewhere across the world in Dubai, I knew Ahmed was smiling.